gosh, man, you guys are amazing.
Yeah,
but let's continue forward with Jenny's conversation.
Right, I'm glad that you asked him that before we end it, because now we've talked about that and we can kind of transition right into that. And Rick, yeah, go ahead.
Well, one thing let's make sure we understand. For a long time, local communities could not do what they're doing right now. They couldn't touch caregivers in ordinance law. It was pretty well established as court cases. Then a different court case happened. Now they feel emboldened to do it. The solution to the problem that was created by the courts lies within the courts itself. We're not able to have a piece of law that's passed that says communities, you shouldn't be doing this. We already have, as the senator pointed out, we already have law that says they shouldn't be doing this. So the only way for us to resolve this is to take one of those best case scenarios, one of those cases where there's a caregiver who's clearly compromised by an ordinance, who's actually been ticketed or penalized by that ordinance, and who clearly has medical connections to patients. And we run that case all the way up to the Supreme Court. And that's how we win this. But that's a really long pathway. I mean, those people are hard to find, and we don't want to wait. And I just don't know if there's a faster solution. I don't know if anyone has ideas to this, but really, as Jenny mentioned, community after community in Michigan is really restricting caregiver growing rights. And until we get a court decision favorable to our position, they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, I think with stuff like that, you have to really get social media involved and local news. I really, you have to start to picket and do whatever you can to make a point that this isn't something that should be, let to happen. So,
yeah. Jenny, you've had experience with a couple of different communities, and you notice some commonalities in some of the things that they say. Isn't that true?
Yeah, they both seem to complain about the smell. They say that they get all these phone calls from residents.
Keep going, Jen.
Oh, sorry. They keep getting calls from residents that say, everything just, smells. We don't like the smell of it. And so Clinton Township last night, that was their biggest reason for wanting to do this. They actually said that, they just get so many complaints about smell that they have to do something. And I just think it is so absurd that they would put some aesthetics like, the possibility of some people not liking the smell of cannabis over the medicinal needs of others. That to me is just shameful. And
Jen, if you're talking about we have to do something, couldn't that be disseminating information to people at large to know that, hey, while you're doing these grows for your patients, put in a cheap and easy ventilation system, and they don't have to, restrict what people can do over this. They can do other things that are proactive.
Absolutely. And then they kept mentioning that, these caregivers were selling to kids and that, kids are taking this to school. And I just,
without providing examples, I assume.
I just don't, obviously they don't need a ordinance to stop that. That's just already technically illegal. So,
but also they were not providing any examples. They were just creating this fear in the air, I would imagine.
Yeah, somebody asked, they would like to see the record of all the calls that they're getting. How many are there? But they are sending it to planning. So they have an ordinance up on their township website in a PDF. I took some screenshots of the whole thing and sent it to Jamie, but in there it says something to the effect that if you are growing for yourself, it's like 45 square feet max. And if you're growing for patients, it was 55 square feet max. I don't know. I just don't know what they're thinking. They said they had a lot of research done to come up with that number. And I'm really curious as to who did that research.
Well, we talked about today the Michigan Municipal League and the Michigan Townships Association, and what those two groups do is they advise cities on best ways to save money, to work together in order to combine services, and to find federal grants. There's lots of great purposes that they serve, but as Adam Brook observed in the chat earlier today, fuck the MML, because oftentimes the Michigan Municipal League and the Michigan Townships Association tell communities to do things about cannabis that just don't seem to jive with what the state law is. And remember that the 2008 voter-directed initiative, that overrules all other laws, including the Michigan Home Rule Cities Act, including any ordinances. When there's ever a conflict between the 2008 Act and a local law, the 2008 Act automatically wins because it's a voter-directed initiative. So we really do need a case to get in there. It's just ridiculous.
And it should be pointed out that many of the places that have these conditions where they expect caregivers to like sign up on a list or something like that, or make themselves known to the city, don't actually expect them to show up to do it, and aren't typically known to enforce stuff around it.
No. We call them pass and pretend laws. They will throw something up on the books because they believe their constituency wants it, and then they know that they're never going to be able to enforce it. It's not legal. And if they did, they'd have a hard time making it work. So consistently, we see things like this done on local level. But when you create such a negative response to your community, like Flint Township did, Jen. Flint Township really was in the media quite a bit for being hard on caregivers. They were in M Live. You arranged for some television media coverage too. It was really a big negative. I'm afraid we lost Jen. But the fact is, it really does draw a bad image down upon these communities. Jim Salame said, social media campaigns, whenever something oppressive towards caregivers is required. I think he's right.
Yeah, he left the room. He's so intensified by this.
I know. He's righteous. He's probably just going to preach to the masses because that's what he does.
And meanwhile, Jen has joined us again, so we don't have to worry about Jim's absence.
Yeah, no. So, Jen, Flint Township, they really got a lot of negative press about this. M Live, the television stations too. They really took a lot of beating, and they're still sticking to their guns, right?
Yeah, they came out for Flushing, and every time I call them, they tend to come out. But I got disconnected there for a second. So what were you saying about Flint Township?
I'm sorry, I misspoke. I meant to say Flushing Township and said Flint Township, so that's my bad.
Oh, well, basically in Flushing, Buddy Dalton and myself, and we've just been raising a lot of noise. We both live here, and so we've been doing everything we can, and we've come a long way. And I feel like Flushing right now is kind of a good example for bridging the gap between the caregiver and the residents and the municipality, because they did listen to us, and we've had a lot of wins on it. We got rid of the acreage requirement, we got rid of the AMP, and now there's the special use land permit that requires an in-person meeting with the planning committee and notifying your neighbors within 300 feet. That is likely to be taken out of there and moved under the type 1, which is still to go into the township, just to simply register as a home occupation, and all your information gets kept on private record. So, I mean, obviously I'm not really for that, but if I had to choose between that and having a caregiver go and put a target on their back by exposing where they live and what they're going to be doing inside their house, I would rather go with the first option.
Right. So talk about the acreage requirement, because what they originally asked for was just outrageous. Tell people what Flushing Township originally thought was a good idea to regulate caregivers with.
Well, they thought it would be fantastic if every caregiver had to own 5 acres of land and live there. And so Flushing property is quite expensive. It's not somewhere that you could just move into and get a house. You wouldn't want to. It's very expensive. But they said that you would have to own 5 acres and live on the residence in order to grow marijuana inside your house. This isn't even about growing outside. This is inside. So even on that 5 acres, you wouldn't be able to put your plants in the ground.
Just to be exclusionary, not even trying to pretend like, oh, I got a bunch of calls about people don't like the smell. So they're just going out of their way to be exclusionary.
Well, they did tell me in the very beginning that they had several nice 5-acre properties for sale.
The next time we go to a township meeting, though, the next time we go to speak to those people, you should bring Baby Yoda with you, because I see Baby Yoda over there, and who can deny that
I have a couple of them.
That face. Come on. It's like, oh, yes. Baby Yoda is the cutest. So, yep.
All right, so
Resistance in cannabis law reform, Baby Yoda.
So, Jen, besides Clinton Township, there are so the 5 acre thing, of course, was stupid. Then they whittled that down
to 2 acres.
To 2 acres, and now you got that done. So it's essentially like, as we discussed before, there's an ordinance still there, and there are things in it and some changes, but there doesn't appear to be anything that, given the bigger scheme of things, would really present much of a problem, and that they really, although they might be hell bent on it, they're really left with no great reason to look at doing an ordinance on this issue. After all the other agreements,
do one, they're going to put something on the books, but I feel like from all these ordinances that have passed, this one looks so much better. It actually looks like a document that the community helped write, that the community had input on, and I just hope that other municipalities, if they are hell-bent on making an ordinance that's still going to likely be unenforceable, at least till some of these cases come out of court, that please work with your residents and listen to the people who this affects and the patients that you're taking away their access to their medication from. Listen to these people. Don't just make an ordinance because you hire a company. They write terrible language. They know nothing about the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, the law, what it says in it. They just write things that pertain to zoning. So, listen to your residents and take us seriously.
One of the things that maybe listeners on Pandora or Alexa or our Roku streaming channel on Pro Cannabis Media, maybe they don't appreciate. In Michigan, if you have a pediatric patient, a child who needs cannabis in order to halt their seizures or to keep themselves alive, that has to be provided to them by their parents who are caregivers. And most caregiver parents prepare or provide cannabis for their child in one way or another. And that often includes growing the specific strains that their child needs that are specifically effective for their illness. And when you restrict the parent of a sick child into how much medicine they can actually make and give to their kid, there's no way you can justify that by the smell of a garden or because maybe a couple of cars come to the parking to the house during the middle of the day. There's just no justification for taking away the growing rights when a parent is providing for a sick child. And oftentimes, the people that are pushing these changes, Jenny, you can back me up on this, people pushing these changes don't have any idea who the caregivers are and how much they're going to affect their lives, do they?
No. And, I don't think that they really care. They think that they're drug houses, that they're just drug dealers. They're just making all this money and the municipality isn't getting any piece of it. So they're just so mad. And so they feel like they need to take it out on the caregiver. In Flushing Township, they used an example of a guy that, was getting robbed. His plants were getting cut down. And there was like a gunshot warning. And so that was just so terrible that now they have to make this ordinance. And so they're just victimizing the victims because he's a victim of theft. I mean, somebody can steal your car in your driveway or anything on your property. It's the exact marijuana, exact same thing, only that is medicine. So somebody comes and chops down somebody's medicine, that should be a huge crime. But instead they're, making ordinances against the grower. And it just doesn't make any sense. Clinton Township actually said last night that they would be happy if all the caregivers just moved out and so they could bust them all up and they could all move. There's a councilman in Warren, and he actually said that he's written the DEA to come and ask them to bust up all the caregivers. And so it's like these people actually want to take away, people's rights and then their access to medication. And I just don't know anybody who would vote for these people. Like, why? They don't represent anyone's interests, left or right, because state rights are bipartisan. Everybody wants their state rights, and the municipality has no right to trample on them. They don't represent the people.
Brandy Zink in the chat, leader of the Michigan ACE chapter, has posted a link that I hope everyone can see, that it's to some support information available from Americans for Safe Access. The truth is, although as frustrating as it is, we're not the first time. It's not the first time we've done this, or it's not the first time America has gone through these things too. And there are resources people can use to help them talk to their local communities, fact sheets they can print out to hand out to their local councilmen. National Normal provides some of these. ASA provides some of these too. There's a lot of ways we can message out and deliver it directly to those decision makers, because oftentimes we are hearing from just a small minority of people. I know Deb's done speaking to communities. I guess she's not here right now, but Deb's spoken to communities years and years and years. Colin, Jamie, Jim, we've all done it. Oftentimes you get a couple of receptive council members, and then there's one very dominant hater, and it really makes it impossible to get things done.
These people in Clinton last night weren't ready for outsiders to show up. The guy was like, "Why are there outsiders here?" "Oh, again, you don't live here." "Okay, why are you here?" And it's just, people don't. These lawmakers just don't understand that what they're doing affects their neighboring communities. It affects people that might be a caregiver in one community and has a patient in another community. They just don't understand how any of this affects one another, how it's connected. And I think if more people start showing up to these meetings and being a part of them, they're gonna learn real quick.
And they conveniently say stuff like,
I'm getting PTSD from Jamie's cam right now. I'm hearing the cops zooming past on Woodward Avenue. It's freaking me out.
Well, that comes to the territory. I don't even hear it anymore. I would mute it if I thought about it. And I guess we did lose Deb. I thought maybe I thought it was one of these things like Jim, where we just saw her chair there. She dropped out for a second. So maybe we'll see her later on. Maybe not. But anyway, Jen, so you're familiar with like other townships and around the area. I think Atlas is one of them. Somebody's asking in the
Vienna.
Yeah, somebody's asking in the comments about Vienna and what's going on there and what kind of help might be possible.
Well, in Ypsilanti Township, I think that one should be one that potentially could be on the list of hopefully let's get that one challenged. They want special land use permit just to grow inside your house. So that does mean you would have to go before planning. You would have to tell them who you are, where you live, and what your intention is with your grow. And you'd also have to notify all of your neighbors within 300 feet. And that, again, is just to grow inside. Then they have another 12 pages that tells you what you can and can't do. It's just absolutely horrible. It's very restrictive. It's just really bad. Theirs already passed. It passed when nobody knew about it. It was going on around COVID time, maybe a little bit before COVID. And nobody knew about it. Just like nobody knew about Flushing's. Most people don't know about Clinton's. Any place that these passed, nobody knows about it. But it got passed. There was no opposition to it because, again, nobody knew about it. And so now it's just on the books. And, if you don't sign up and go before their planning committee and beg for your little permit to grow inside your house and put all your information out there, then you can't grow. So they still have the option to deny you. And there's only been maybe one person that's tried to get permission, and they posted up his medical marijuana license on the internet with his name and his address. And he did not get permission to grow inside.
Wait a second. He was supposed to register with what, the police or with the city, like the clerk?
Yeah, like the township office.
And then they're the ones that put that up online?
Well, see, this was just from the meeting, the planning hearing.
Because it became public record because he submitted it with a application or something like that.
And he's trying to get his meeting for the planning commission to ask for permission to have a special land use to grow marijuana inside his house. And I guess he might have been one of the bad neighbors from what I hear. I wasn't there, but
Even though he willingly offered up that information,
You can't share that publicly.
that was necessary. Yeah, that was. He found that to be necessary.
He got in trouble before and like cited or something, maybe. And so he was like, okay, well, here's I'm trying to apply.
Right. He thought it was necessary to be able to operate in good conscience based on the local law. And so he gave that information.
And he, you know, the word on the street is he probably ran home and chopped all his plants down, you know. And so, like, this is what ordinances are doing to people. And it's just so wrong because these are people's rights, and you know, even though the DeRuyter's decision isn't clear really about anything, it does say that you cannot ban a caregiver, you cannot penalize a caregiver, and you cannot impose unreasonable restrictions on a caregiver. So if you do not issue that permit, then to me that's banning the caregiver. So they are all so ready to make this ordinance over this DeRuyter case, but they all skip the 3 points that they also said you cannot do, and they just simply do it.
Some of it's pushing that definition of what's reasonable. Some of this is just flat out in violation, more restrictive than state law.
And who decides what's reasonable? Not you and I. The courts decide what's
Another
reasonable.
case is going to have to probably make its way up. You know, the attorney general could issue an opinion. That's not likely. So, you know what? We are running low on time. Jen, anything coming up that people should know about? We'll have future meetings.
Yes. So July 8th at 7 p.m. in Flushing Township at the township office is going to be draft 1, reading 1 of the ordinance because draft 4 got scrapped. And it's going to be a good time for people to come out and use their 3 to 6 minutes to talk about changes that you still would like to see. They aren't going to be able to vote on it until the second reading. So next month is kind of a free-for-all for people to come on out and give your input on the ordinance and what changes you would like to see. So please come on.
It's not going to be voted on, so all input will get on record, and they'll go into the next meeting then and maybe discuss it again and vote on it. Okay.
Right.
Someone posted in the chat that Warren's meeting is tonight. So those of you in the area.
Yep.
Keith
Olson. Thank you, Keith. All right.
Oh,
so
the guy from Warren, the councilman, Kapuscinski, he was the one that said that he wrote this letter to the DEA asking them to bust up all the caregivers. And so if that means tonight, you guys could go on there and meet this lovely fella.
So just to wrap up a little bit, and then we're going to kind of spin it around to end the show. You know, this is the other way that caregivers are being attacked. They've been attacked ever since the law passed. The MCMA stuff that we discuss is another way. There's many things we can point to. And we have to stay vigilant. And when we do, it seems to work on all these fronts. And your energy that you've brought to this is very important, Jen. And I appreciate it a lot. And I think it's much appreciated by the community at large. And with that, we had a great show today. Thanks for being a part of it.
Thank you.
And let's just spin around here to see what anybody needs to say, anything anybody needs to plug anything. We'll end up with Rick for final thoughts and leave it at that. So Colin, any reflections on today?
Not really too much. There's a Michigan Psychedelic Society meeting on July 17th, I think. That's really the only psychedelic event we got really coming up. We're on break from the Antheo show for the next month. So, yeah.
Antheo Fest is being planned. Yeah. September 19th. So it's coming up. More.
All right. We'll talk more about that.
You know, IrwinForSenate.com. Remember that. And Jenny, I wish you so well with your city, and the truth will come out, and all those people and all their corruption will be exposed, and you know, it's just going to take a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I hope we can do maybe even a voter referendum in Vienna Township, because you know, maybe the residents will agree that one's too strict. So that could be an option for Vienna Township. And you know, if anybody has done one of those before, or would like to help explain to me the next steps, that's something in the future I'd like to work on. So thank you so much again for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen. And thanks for expanding your advocacy beyond your own hometown and talking to people in far distant places to try and spread that word, because oftentimes we only work on the things that are important to us locally, and then we stop when things are bigger. Thanks for not doing that.
I'm not quitting.
Good. We'll see you this Sunday.
All right, I will see you then.
Good.